financial powers in a way created or took over, hijacked the state, very quickly, because well, we can all relate to the fact that state was created to oversee, economic transactions, trade, this taxation. It was created around these things. So obviously it emanates from commerce, from the market. So once we understand this, all the idea that we can have a market and then the state can be sidestepped, can be put aside and eliminated is a bit strange, because what prevents the creation of a new form of power? Maybe it's not going to be a government, but what prevents those who have money to create some form of a cartel or organization that will still, further their interests at the detriment of the vast majority of people who don't have money. And Molin would say, this is inefficient. Nobody would spend money to recreate this state because it would take so much money that that would completely be in a way counterproductive. And I think that is a bit wishful thinking as well. So the fact remains that we have a form of power which is money, and as long as it's there, the existing powers will infiltrate and hijack it, and to their advantage. And obviously that will create the competition and in a way the unfair advantage that we see today.
I think what makes it more complicated as well is the relationship between governments and corporations, because I think the popular opinion is that corporations have taken over from governments, or that was it in the 80s? I think the Thatcher and Reagan era.
Yes.
Was when they their kind
deregulation
of
and free reign to corporations.
Yeah, and their kind of selling point was less government. Preying on this idea that people don't trust governments. So we're going to put it all on these guys, the corporations, but they're clearly not independent. They're clearly not independent entities.
Well, the corporations have taken over the state. They have hijacked the state through the power of money, through lobbyists, and all these mechanisms that are well known.
Yeah.
And maybe the state was created with all the best intentions.
But clearly there's overlap though, because I'm sure lots of government officials have been involved with corporations. They must. And when they leave office,
there is a revolving door mechanism.
That's it, the revolving door.
People from the government going into corporations and vice versa. Then you have the regulated is the regulator as well. And
which you see in the pharmaceutical. See in the pharmaceutical industry.
That's why the government has been totally hijacked by the corporate power, and that's why we see this accelerating trend towards socio-economic damage and the polarization of wealth, the rich getting richer and the poor getting.
It's incredible now.
This is what I would define the controlled demolition of the middle class. This is my definition.
Yeah, controlled demolition.
It's controlled.
You're a conspiracy theorist.
Am I not? Of course I am. And it's happening slowly, but it's through this money and interest and debt creation that is removing money from those who don't have it to give it to those who already have quite a.
And I think people don't generally realise that these are long processes, and that planning, social planning happens 20, 30 years in advance, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And I think the mainstream media has a lot to play in that, because around 2007, when in England it was the collapse of Northern Rock, was the bank collapse we had initially, and in America was the Lehman Brothers. It seemed to just sort of appear in the paper. I don't know, where were you in 2007? Were you in England?
I was in England.
Yeah. Did you feel that it kind of just appeared, or there wasn't really much build up? It just.
Yes.
And what's interesting is that on iTunes, I listen to many podcasts, and you can find old ones pre-2007, and they're talking about it. These conspiracy theorists, supposedly, they're talking about it, and they say, you've got to be careful. And what's happened in Italy, Crisi, that was predicted. I mean, my father's Italian, and I said to him, have you heard anything in the media about Italy? He said, no, nothing. And I said, well, watch in the next year or so, they're going to start talking about a crisis. And of course they did, but it gives the impression that these things are just random, Why are so many people dying of cancer? You know, it amazes me. You know, how many celebrities and famous people? Oh, they've got cancer. You know, as if it's. You know, I'm not saying I've got the cure for cancer, but as if it's just this thing. All these things just materialize. You know, people have to realize
any
that.
causal effect.
Yeah, people have to realize that all these things. Not saying that diseases are planned. I wouldn't go that far, but things are planned, and you know, the pharmaceutical industry would be a really good thing for people to realize about. You know, as we were saying about government officials basically regulating themselves, you know, with this revolving door. And just the plain fact that pharmaceutical industry relies on sickness. Yeah, I mean, that's a fact. I mean, whether you think that that's deliberate or not, that's
it
a
makes
fact.
perfect sense. The more sick
sense.
people there are, and the more, you know, drugs to be sold, and machines into hospitals, and, you know, and the more money is poured into the marketing for that kind of drugs, because most of the investment today in pharmaceutical companies goes into the marketing, not even into the research. I don't know if you know that most drugs, what they are labeled as new drugs launched in the market, are nothing else than the rehashing, you know, and just rejiggering of the old molecules and old drugs under a different name, and, you know, market segmentation, the drug for children, the drug for the elderly, the drug for this, for that. So this goes a long way to explain, you know, what kind of manufacturing, how to say, illness is going on through also the marketing and the advertisement campaigns that we see, you know, the restless leg syndromes. You know, if you move your legs and you're a bit agitated, you know, in the office, then you're sick and you have to take this particular pill. You know, there is a very good documentary that I show in Italian called Inventori di Malattie, you know, inventing sickness, and he spoke about these mechanisms. You know, they are in the business of selling sickness. You know, not really. Their dream, in a way, is to sell drugs to healthy people. You know, their goal, and that's what they are doing through this. You know, inducing, you know, and creating a drug for any kind of emotion the human beings can have. You know, you feel a bit sad, you feel a bit depressed, a bit euphoric. You know, that's bad. It's not normal. You have to take a drug, and you have a pill for any kind of human emotion.
And of course, remember that, you know, things like coffee, cigarettes, alcohol, all. I mean, okay, cigarettes is not particularly socially acceptable, but, you know, it's acceptable in the sense that it's legal.
Legit drugs.
Yeah, I mean, it's legal, and it's a part of society, and people would say, well, you shouldn't smoke, but we understand why you smoke. That kind of thing, you know. Whereas then you get to pot, you know, marijuana, and it's a different story. But if we were living in 1930s America, where prohibition, you know, alcohol, we would frown upon alcoholics, presumably. I mean, okay, people do to some extent, but I think people have got to realise as well that drugs are part of society, and, you know, it's a very blanket term. You know, everybody, if you think of it logically, everybody is a drug addict, or nearly everybody. You know, there are probably a few people that don't have any kind of those kind of stimulants. But
going back to the Molyneux Peter Joseph debate, just to conclude, or I don't know if you have anything else to add, but you know, I think it may be clear from what I said, but I'm not a proponent of the state, or I don't defend this kind of state that we have today, because it's definitely a corrupt system. You know, the political system is very ineffective. At least it doesn't work for most people. It only works for the elites, and it's part of the problem. It's not part of the solution as it is. So, you know, I'm not defending the state in any way. I'm actually, you know, more sympathetic toward the anarchist view of, you know, no state if we can get there, but that requires, I think, a very high spiritual level and a level of connection and responsibility that human beings are probably haven't achieved yet, me included, obviously. But you know, it's quite an interesting debate what went on, and I think we should try to take maybe the best of the two positions, and maybe recognize that before getting to a fully, you know, natural resource, natural raw economy or resource-based economy, we may go through some sort of transition that will, you know, entail the use of money, probably a different sort of money, you know, maybe